Good morning, Misfits. Before we get started with the show, we just wanted to let you know that we have a brand spanking new podcast channel on YouTube. So if you're already on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you are listening to this podcast right now, make sure you head to our socials, head into Discord, find that link for this podcast, go to that and hit a subscribe on the channel. All right, it's showtime. Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into a special edition of the Misfit podcast. Every 7 to 10 weeks or so, there is a brand new training phase at misfitathletics.com. And Monday, June 5th, we get started on a new one. And this podcast, we typically put out a week or two before and just let you guys know what's coming, why we are programming the way that we are, what it's progressing from, what it's progressing to. So I think it serves as a really good way to hype the athletes up and get them excited about some changes and something new that they can, sort of wrap their mind around a little bit. But then if you're a coach or a programming nerd and you just want to hear how we're doing certain things, why we're doing them, it's a really good podcast to tune into. Before we get started, it is the year of the GOAT. It is the year 23. That is where our idea for the semifinals jerseys came from.
Not the Zodiac sign?
Not the Zodiac sign.
Make sure we weren't confused. All right, I was confused, but now I'm not.
I don't understand any of that. So I only have context for sports. I'm a fucking lughead. And I did not push any of the athletes to do the Carolina blue shirts because I selfishly wanted to make it for us. So we have some actual semifinals jerseys, some official Goon Squad semifinals jerseys. Fuck. If you're listening and not watching on YouTube, I'm sorry. I'm about to open a box and hand out gifts.
Put the microphone next to the box.
Get the fuck out of here. That's a thing?
Damn, son.
Oh, shit, that shit's crispy.
What's Shreb say?
Goon, guy.
Goon.
Goon.
Fuck. They all say
Spoiler
goon.
alert. They all say goon.
Fuck.
Those
That's
are dope.
tight.
Only thing I'm sad about it, I'm going to wear this on my couch when I'm watching
There you go, Ted.
semifinals. That's
And
fucking
I don't
dope.
know who this one's for. Ooh. Okay. So
Ooh,
we have
even better.
that makes this fun for the listener.
Is this about to be a giveaway?
This could be a giveaway right here.
Yo.
So we have the full reversible. We get the Goon name on the back. Turn this baby.
Oh, it is
inside out.
reversible.
Yeah, it's reversible.
You know people are going to kill people for these, right? They're going to literally murder each other for it.
Right, there is the white side.
Me on StockX murders.
There we go. So we have an extra. Thanks, Jen, for the extra. Thanks,
That's
Jen,
dope.
for making this happen.
Jen actually ordered it for herself, and you're about to raffle it off.
Maybe. Well, no, Jen might just win this contest, right? Someone is going to win this
Gotta play,
jersey, and we
Jen,
don't know
gotta play.
how. So why don't you just,
Only four of
maybe
these bad
subscribe
buddies
to
in
our brand new
circulation?
YouTube channel.
I'll auction.
Oh,
Might
baby.
auction it off.
Subscribe
All
to the
right,
Misfit
so
podcast on
the
YouTube.
Misfit podcast on
subscribe
YouTube.
to-
You can find that in our link in bio kind of thing on Instagram. It's kind of the easiest way.
It's youtube.com/@.
That's correct. I did see that.
Podcast.
Okay, so head there, hit subscribe. We are going to choose one person to give away. And if this was for Jen, then we're going to have her subscribe, and she's going to win.
Yeah, you better subscribe. You're not getting your jersey.
I don't think it's for her. So we're set. We are set for semifinals.
Damn.
It's the only thing I'm going to be wearing between now and then.
It is semifinals week. I'm not entirely sure when this podcast is going to publish. It will publish well before June 5th.
Publish at some point.
That's when you can head to misfitathletics.com and get 2 weeks for free. You can check out the first 2 weeks of the Hatchet Offseason phase number 2. It's semifinals week, gentlemen. We are here. We have arrived at
Very
semifinals
excited.
week. And one person in this room is going to semifinals.
Congratulations, Ted.
And it's not us.
Congratulations, Ted.
This is the first time in 11 years that I will be missing
Ditto.
a regional semifinal, that kind of thing. Obviously, on the side of the team, you feel good about there being kind of a camaraderie vibe. My parents are still heading down to Orlando to cook for everybody. So I got that going. Jen and Ted will be there. Gabe will be there. Kenzie will be there. So we got a good crew going down. I am fucking livid at the possibility that I can't watch certain events.
Yeah,
someone will be Instagram living or FaceTiming.
Claire's got that, right?
Whatever, right?
Your dad's got that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He pointed at the fucking ceiling.
Yeah, point at him the entire time. Just watch
Just a
videos
selfie.
of him
Just a
the entire
selfie.
time. Fuck, whenever I get a chance to watch my mom try to take photos of my kid, I'm
Him
just
just
like,
saying
what
he
are
would
you
have done it
doing?
unbroken.
Like, hold on, I'm gonna use my iPad to get a photo. I'm gonna hold it like this. Why is it up the wall? It's hard to do this. I'm like literally pointed at him.
So I don't think Maya's mom knows what trolling is, but she's currently trolling. So
trolling.
what she does is she takes photos that Maya sends her of Carter and zooms way in, like onto just his like eyes, nose, and mouth.
Oh, yeah.
And Maya's like, what are you doing? Why do you have to zoom in so much? The next day, she posted a photo of his hand and part of his arm.
Just like
what?
this?
No. It's like so. At least the face is whatever. Maybe the scope of the photo is like 8 to 10 inches. This one was literally 3 or 4 inches all the way
fingers.
in. And Maya was like, "This is not real." And I was like, I don't know if she knows what trolling is, but she is fucking trolling you. This is a mother-daughter thing,
High-level
that
troll.
is currently happening. It literally just said like, "Look at the rolls." On Instagram, and I was like, "All right, here we go."
Rolls.
Yeah,
I love
they
those
do.
wrist rolls.
Is it on
do.
Instagram?
It's on Instagram.
Oh, I'm gonna give her a follow. For
It's
sure.
on Instagram.
Throw her
Just
follow
a
for
I'm gonna
those.
throw her a follow for that.
Baby
couple of
zoom ups.
comments. Sick zoom. I really like how close you're getting in on these photos.
At Crandall's,
I wanna see the
at
individual arm
Crandall
hairs.
rolls. That rolls by Crandall.
Yes. So this episode of the podcast is exclusively brought to you by the Misfit Athletics and Sharpen the Axe semifinals collections, which are live now. Again, what day is it right now in real life? We're not really sure. But what we are sure of is that you can head to sharpentheaxeco.com and use your favorite athlete code to buy. There actually are still some leftover semifinals jerseys, but more importantly, brand new shorts on the men's side, Misfit, STA, Suffer. We got socks, we got wristbands, we've got new shirts, we've got throwback shirts, we've got women's running shorts, we've got women's leggings, we've got headbands, we got all kinds of brand spanking new stuff. And at this point, you have probably already seen it out on the competition floor at semifinals. You're starting to get jealous. There are a few items in there interspersed that are sort of limited quantity and probably will not exist
you guessed right.
again, because it's just fun to do a throwback and then go, oh, they're gone. Someday we'll throw them back. Ooh, Purple Rain return. That's exciting. Every time we post an old photo of an athlete and those people are pissed that they can't buy them. So you've been pissed for long enough. Sharpentheaxeco.com. Use your favorite athlete code. They're going to be out there on the floor trying to punch their ticket to Madison. You save 10% and we give them 10%. So you save money and you give them money. It's pretty cool. Yes. Yeah. The women's stuff, I'm telling you right now, 4 dudes here designing women's clothing can
good
be
at it.
challenging.
How have you done, Hunter?
Doing good.
Hunter is
great.
very good at designing
Design
women's
this
clothing.
basketball.
This shooty hoop shirt.
The shooty hoops tanky.
I'm just envisioning the open palm, the hockey player
Listen,
dribble.
guy, I can fucking dribble a basketball.
I think he's just thinking about Caroline
can
doing cross
shoot
people up.
one sort of too.
All right, we got to sell this argument.
You
Let's
might
install a hoop at the gym.
you might be like a 7 on the hockey player basketball
I
scale.
couldn't throw a football.
I mean, I've seen it. He can now. I've seen him now. I think he practiced the
About
entire
10
time.
years
Football.
ago, you threw a football like you had a third arm that was your non-dominant arm. It was worse than your left. And I don't know if you disappeared and you worked on it.
He threw grenades.
Yes.
That's how he practiced.
Yes, he went into the military and learned how to throw grenades.
You throw it
He's good to
exactly
go.
the same. Nice spiral.
Bite the end off of it.
Really
throw
wind
it.
up with it. Yeah.
The women's leggings, the women's running shorts, really awesome reviews from our athletes, and there's the ones in the trenches and sort of putting it through the paces. So
Say we got
hope
men's
all of you
shorts, too?
really like. Oh yeah.
Lots of
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
A lot of shorts.
Like 5 different pairs.
Really?
Yes. You can have 1 or 2. Depends on your attitude throughout this podcast. All right.
All right.
Hatchet.
One it is.
No shorts. What? Hatchet
no
off
shorts. Can't
season
make me.
number 2. If you're listening to this podcast and you're like, what is the naming convention here? guess what? It doesn't really matter all that much. What matters is what's in the program. So if you're listening to this, we're going to talk you through how you would choose which sort of sub track that you're on within this program. It is 8 weeks long. There is a surprise and kid, tarps off, boys.
We're doing a naked podcast.
I'm about to find out whether I needed an XL or not, because if this looks big on you, I'm in deep trouble.
Nah, dog.
All right, not too bad.
Yeah,
not too bad.
XL fits
That
good.
true to size?
Yeah, I'd say so. Not super baggy, but fits nicely. Subscribe to that channel. Maybe you'll get one.
Maybe you will.
Maybe you
All
won't.
right, medium.
We'll find out.
Thought I was going to get trolled.
Give them small.
XS.
Paint it on them.
So
Should have got them a lax penny.
when you go to the website before June 5th, misfitathletics.com, start your 2-week free trial. You are going to see a program laid out in front of you with a whole lot of stuff on it. And it's like, okay, if this is for basically everyone who is not advancing to the CrossFit Games, all the way from open athlete to someone who's just come off of semifinals, like, how is that possible? There's a lot of options here.
Including masters and teenagers.
Including masters and teens, yes. So literally every athlete at Misfit Athletics that is not advancing to the CrossFit Games will be on this. And we've honestly really enjoyed having the community consolidated more and more as we go. There's something special about, again, I think what makes our program different than others is you can specialize but not be on an island. So many times when you are, in this super specialty program, you're basically doing it by yourself, and it just feels like, it gets a little lonely after a little while. Obviously, community and training partners and all that are a huge part of the CrossFit community. So, what separates us again is that camaraderie within this, because there's these 50 people on Discord following the strength track, and these 100 are on the conditioning, and then more people are being brought in as the competition season sort of moves on. So when you go there, you will notice that there is a lot of work within each day, and it's really important that you're paying attention to what the instructions at the top are. So you're going to have 4 options in Hatchet Offseason number 2. Option number 1 is something that is new, and that it has been requested by our users and will continue to take place throughout the season, and that is the open athlete. So if you compete every year in the open, that is your Super Bowl. That is where you test yourself every year. You're going to be able to go in and see what the instructions are, what our expectations are for you. The good thing here is we're literally looking for you to sort of on the minimum level do a strength and a conditioning piece daily. It's that point in the year where we do want to differentiate there. We're not necessarily going in and overdoing it on the conditioning. We're not just doing strength. Neither of those paths are really where we want athletes at this point in the season. And then the other 3 options are a strength bias track, a conditioning bias track, and a balanced track. Plain and simple, if you think what held you back in the 2023 season, whether it was the open, quarterfinals, or semifinals, was your raw strength, you should be on the strength track. And we challenge you to use competition data to find that, because it's not just what we like to do or what our insecurities are or how we feel about certain things. You might think that you need to get way stronger, and then you go look across the board and you actually did place a little bit higher in that strength event than you did the other ones. That is a clear indication that we need to go on to either the conditioning or the balance track. I will say this to the community that's already been following Hatchet Offseason 1. A lot of you should be making the move from strength to balanced or conditioning. I'm not saying all of you. There's something special about an entire summer of, hitting the iron as long as you're still getting after it and still breathing heavy on a very regular basis. So I don't want to generalize and say that's for everybody. But if you are on the fence, I really do think that we're probably looking closer at the balance track or the conditioning track. So again, when you're going into that, we have the open athlete. We're just going to try to get those 2 pieces done, and we'll expand on that here in a minute. Strength, conditioning or balance track is really just about choosing where you think you're at. If your conditioning held you back, conditioning. If you're well-rounded, if you're looking and everything looks kind of similar across the board, that balance track is going to be really good. And it's a lot like the open track. There's just an additional 1 or 2 pieces depending on how much time you actually have.
Yeah, I was just looking at one of my remote clients. Let's just go for placings of quarterfinals, not the open, for example, as determining which track to be on. We've got a 76th, a 45th, a 131st, a 58th, and then a 538th in the event that was the clean and jerk burpee box jump over.
Yep.
There's a clear identifiable weakness in the ability to move the barbell. That is someone who should be spending their time on the strength track. Lindsay works really hard, has a really good motor, but that's the one thing that held her back last season. So what are we spending the last 8 weeks doing? Essentially exactly the strength track. Outside of an occasional, here's a Metcon, throw you a bone, because she does like to do the conditioning as well, but primarily focused on the lifting aspect. And one of the things that she's really said has made a difference for her is not having too many options in front of her and being like tempted to do something else, which is what really these tracks are all about, is trying to take the guesswork out of it so you're not having that athlete FOMO or that anxiety that you're not getting stuff done. Like, this plan will work for you if you stick to it. The hard part for you is going to be sticking to it when maybe someone around you is like, hey, let's jump into this, jump in that. That's a really slippery slope that athletes can fall into and backslide because they're not staying focused on what they actually need. So, kind of a call to action here to stick to the plan you've been on, unless there's been some dramatic change in the way your strength has developed over the last 7 weeks. But for most people, continuing to stay the course is the right course of action. And the hard part is going to be continuing to do that.
We'll talk here in a minute about the strength work, but you alluded to strength being the weakness, but also said something to the effect of how you move a barbell. So much of the strength track is about, let's get you raw strength, let's get you some speed and some power, and let's teach you how to teach yourself essentially to move around a barbell. So all that stuff is built in there. It's not like heavy deadlift, heavy back squat, heavy bench press, heavy, front squat, whatever, every single day. There's a nice balance of these things. And at the end of the day, if you did that strength track and you went through and you did, again, 10 lifts per week, aside from mock games, that's 70 lifting sessions where you could truly move the needle and be really ready for the whole community, beyond games to join what we're doing.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I'm like going back and pulling up her sheet right now and I'm looking at some of the strength notes that I have for her. And it's just stay patient, stay the course, stay patient, stay the course. You've been fixing this, focus on that again.
Yep.
And the biggest change in her attitude is not wanting to catch up with the Joneses or keep up with the Joneses. It's, hey, I got to focus on me right now.
They can't keep up with her in a lot of conditioning pieces, right? So
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's hard to almost, I don't want to say I put her on her island with this, because there's definitely a bunch of other people also doing the strength track, but it might feel like it because I'm sure she looks at the Metcons and be like, that's what I want to be focusing on. It's like, we'll get back to that. You have the motor, you're still doing math, you're still doing Metcons here and there, but with this focus and staying patient and finally really taking ownership over that, I have to really slow down to speed back up, is a really hard lesson to learn, because, it's itching at you that you're falling behind. But the progress she's made in the last 7 weeks with how she moves a barbell in the Olympic lifts is night and day. And that's going to carry over to going back to quarterfinals next year. And then they throw that, 185 clean and jerk back out there. That's a made lift every single time, instead of my made lift with 90 seconds, 2 minutes of rest in between, which is, the biggest reason why she wasn't able to advance was the consistency in her movement wasn't high enough that she could repeat that heavy lift over and over again. And now it's becoming more and more automatic.
I think there's plenty of opportunities for the raw strength to get developed, but that was going to be something that I was just going to add, is that there are a handful of Olympic weightlifting sessions. It's not tipped towards that style of lifting for the phase, but if you, again, like we say it, so basically every phase podcast that rolls around, if you are not moving well with the Olympic lifts, it does not matter how strong you are. It does not matter what your deadlift, your squat, your front squat, your ability to put a barbell overhead is. If you cannot move the bar efficiently from the floor, none of that is going to translate. So again, you've got 2 lifts and accessory work. The accessory work is kind of sneaky where you can get really strong. But you pair that with the Texas method back squat, which we'll talk about, and the strength will come again, if you're somebody who is like, again, more often than not in the open or quarterfinals, people get limited by their ability to move the 185 or the 275 barbell multiple times, or the squat snatch at the end of after a bunch of strict handstand push-ups and stuff like that. It's not necessarily a raw strength thing. It's how you move a barbell. And if you don't move a barbell well in a lifting session, you cannot expect yourself to move a barbell well after a Metcon when it shows up in the open or quarterfinal. So taking the time now to pull weights back, make sure that you're moving perfectly, especially in the more technical lifts, is how you can like realize the actual raw strength that you're gaining over the course of this phase.
I want to talk a little bit more about the open athlete instructions. At this point in the year, there is very much this a la carte vibe to the programming. We need personalization at the highest level, the further away we are from the season. Less sports specific, more specific to you. That could be the sport. There are some people that have the tools in different arenas and just need to learn how to do CrossFit and pace better and all that good stuff. So what I will say, this will become extremely clear and almost kind of box you in come phase 1 in the fall. So enjoy yourself having the a la carte right now, but find the patterns. Everyone gets a week in advance. So you get to see all the way out the entire week. Take a look at the whole week if you're an open athlete. And again, try to find the patterns of, am I going to follow this lifting progression, right? So if it's only choose one lift and choose one conditioning piece, we want to see, hey, I'm working on my rowing or my running or my biking right now. And some days that conditioning piece is just the bitch work, monostructural. If we're looking at the strength work, again, you're going to get strong if you go full GPP mode and just choose whatever you want. But if you're really looking to move a barbell better within this movement, or get better at dumbbell bench press, or you want to follow the Texas method back squat, all that stuff, make sure that you're seeing when that stuff is popping up and understanding that I am going to choose this week to week for 7 out of the 8 weeks.
Man, all I'm thinking about is that athlete right now has so many opportunities to highlight not only motor patterns and certain movements and like things that kind of move the needle for you as an athlete, but starting to recognize that the athlete IQ exercises, you have a full 2 phases head start on anybody that's like going through the rest of their season. You can start to recognize, not only am I moving poorly in a lift and how I want to address that, but like, are there combinations of movements that give me trouble? Are there energy systems that need addressing? Are there combinations of movements and energy systems that play a role in how I perform? That there is no detail too small, especially this far away from the season, to start creating like this giant whiteboard for yourself of things that you can kind of systematically approach. And then as you are looking at your week in advance, circling those things on the calendar, being like, this is exactly what I needed to do, because last time a muscle overload workout with dumbbell thrusters came up, I did poorly. How can I fix that this time? And then basically getting a jump start on that. And while it might feel like it's a little bit over the top or a little bit too nerdy, like that is what the best athletes in the sport do. Whether they physically write it down or they go through that exercise in their head. Anytime I talk to Caroline about a workout, that's exactly the kind of, thing I hear back from her is, last time this combination of running, sleds, and farmer's carry came up, this is when I fell apart. This time in the workout, after this many sets, after this many reps, that is the type of stuff that I would really want you to lean into, especially this early in the season, because the more data you collect, the more information you're going to have. And that's what helps you carry over that performance and awareness into the competitive season.
The last thing here on the open athlete instruction. So I'll read an example. Open athletes choose one lift, one conditioning piece, and if you have any extra time, add one more from any category. That could be accessory, another conditioning, another lift, your skill work, whatever it is. Do not have the mentality of that's 5 days a week where I do 3 pieces, or it's 0 days a week. There will be days where it's appropriate because of how much time you have. There'll be days where it's appropriate because of how much energy you have. There will be days that it's appropriate because of the other 2 that you chose. Really try to think that. And it's okay if your plan for the whole week is set out. I have my 2 pieces and then you're adding as you go. You're like, you know what? I actually feel pretty good today. I've made it, maybe I've made it a whole week with doing those 2 pieces. I've adjusted well. Now I'm going to add in a skill session or one of the accessories, whatever it is. Try not to have the all or nothing mentality. Try to add slowly. Linear progression is something that we know so well within machines, within lifting, within skill, and we don't apply it to more macro concepts. If we want to be a quarterfinals athlete by phase 3 this year, add 1 a day. And then at some point you're going to add another one, and then you're going to add another one. Do it as an iterative process, and it will go a lot better than I'm gung-ho. It's week 1. Let's fucking go. I'm doing 19 pieces. I'm going to sleep 1 hour, hanging upside down from the rafters. Like,
consistency is what matters. Like when you're in a situation where you have your whole week laid out and I got a 90-minute session this day, a 2-hour this day, an hour this day, and then fucking life happens. You can't, you're late to work, something happens with your kids, you get called into a conference call and you're like, fuck, my 2 hours is now 30 minutes. Do something. Pick the accessory. Even if you're only able to do one of the 3 accessory movements for 3 rounds versus 6 rounds, something is better than nothing. And the consistency here is what's going to determine how well you perform and how you advance throughout the rest of the season. So I do think that's one of those situations where good and perfect are enemies of one another, because if you get so wrapped up in the fact that you can't get it all done, that can really throw you off and start to create a negative spiral where all of a sudden I've only did the accessory all week because, I felt like I was, feeling sorry for myself. That's all I had time for. Instead of, I probably could have done the rowing intervals, or I could have hit, some banded strict pull-ups, or just something to stay moving. For a lot of athletes, I think that's one of those really big concepts that gets in the way of them wanting to, progress further and further, is that they can't hit everything they want in an idealistic time window because life happens.
If you are an open athlete, whether you classify yourself as that because that's where you're at an ability level, like maybe not quite quarterfinals level athlete, or you classify yourself that way as a result of how much time you have available to train, both of them, the commonality with which you have to approach training is basically whatever you are doing, whether that's 1 piece or 3 pieces, is the intensity level at which you approach them. So that doesn't always necessarily mean maximal effort within the workout. It means a high level of attention to your pacing, your movement patterns, whatever it is, but you're focusing heavily on it. And there should be days throughout your training week where there is the workout where it's like, this workout is purely about how hard I want to go or how hard I'm able to go, because if you are trying to make that jump from the open to quarterfinals level, your season is 3 weeks long where you have to go very, very hard in one single workout once a week. It's not about combining as many training pieces as you can and getting, 80% intensity across these pieces. It's about picking the things that you're not very good at, that you need to work on, but also making sure that you are putting forward the intensity level within those pieces to actually move the needle on your fitness in a smaller amount of time.
And if you watch anyone who's really good at the sport of CrossFit, if you watch them perform one single session, not a whole day's worth of work, but like one single effort, let's just say it's either a lift or Metcon, just watch how they approach it, watch how they get themselves ready, how they execute, and how they wrap things up. You're going to notice some things that are really clearly different from the average CrossFitter. And I think one of the things I've noticed, knowing that you're not a super competitive athlete in terms of like you want to compete in the sport of CrossFit, but you do like to perform really well. If you ever watch Hunter get ready for a workout, it's get into the gym, spend probably 15 to 20 minutes prepping for whatever he's about to do, hitting that one thing super hard, cooling down, and then going back to whatever he was doing other. And he's done 45 minutes. He's got a really good session, and he's, top 0.1% of fitness athletes in the world, despite the fact he doesn't compete in the sport. And that's just because he understands that, like, if I'm going to go do something, I'm going to fucking do it the right way. I'm not going to just do it to do it.
True. All right, Misfits, we're going to pause for one quick second. A couple of housekeeping items.
Housekeeping. We
have talked about how Maine is dope as fuck in the summer.
Sure
and
is.
We have Misfit Summer Camp, June 23rd through the 25th. You can get signed up at misfit.camp. We divide you into teams. You get your own team shirt. We do some, sort of community building exercises, and we still get into the nitty gritty that we do at all of our other camps, but it is all centered around this idea of what makes CrossFit and the sport and Misfit Athletics so powerful is the community itself. There'll be games athletes hanging hanging around doing their games prep, all that good stuff. We'll get outside. We might go to the beach, all that good stuff. So misfit.camp, get signed up.
You might have heard us say that Hatchet Offseason Phase 2 starts on June 5th. If you're looking to get what you need to be ready for this brand new training phase, you're going to need the best supplements in the market, and that's at properfuel.co. You can use the code word Misfit, or if you're looking to support your favorite athlete, you can use code Kelly, Carol, or Paige.
Correct.
Using that code gets you a discount on the product with Proper Recovery, the best post-workout supplement in the game, but also helps support their journey to the CrossFit Games because we plan on seeing all three of them at the CrossFit Games this season. All right. Head to properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit or your favorite athlete code.
We launched a recent YouTube channel.
Congratulations, Hunter. Good job.
YouTube. Yes, we, as in I. YouTube.com / the Misfit podcast. We would love for you to go subscribe, and to incentivize you to subscribe, we are giving away one of only four ever produced, only unveiled just like 30 minutes ago on this podcast, Misfit Goon Squad limited edition jerseys. So if you go subscribe to the YouTube channel, we will randomly select one winner to receive the fifth, right? Fifth and only Misfit Goon Squad basketball tank. So again, head to youtube.com / the Misfit podcast, subscribe to that Bad Betty, and maybe you'll find yourself as one of the five most
goons.
elite people on the planet.
So you subscribed, but you didn't win the jersey, but you still want some dope gear. You can head to sharpentheaxecode.com. Sharpen the Axe and Misfit Athletics Semifinals Collection, one of our biggest releases that we've done in a very long time. Use your favorite athlete code. The athletes at semifinals need your support. You save 10%. We donate 10%. All right, back to the show. All right, let's talk strength work. Guess what's back, guys? Guess what's here? Come on.
I missed it.
Guess what's back squats?
Guess who's back squats?
God damn it.
Texas Method back squat. Cliff's notes.
You gonna learn
on Texas Method back squat. On Mondays, we do a 5 rep max.
I think it's 5x5 is Monday.
On Monday, we do 5x5. Are you sure about that?
No.
I'm pretty sure.
I think
That's dangerous, though.
5 rep max on Monday, 5x5 on Friday.
Yes. So you're going to find a new 5 rep max back squat 7 times. You're going to do that every Monday. Every Friday, you are going to do 5x5 at 90% of the 5 rep max that you found. To go on a little storytelling time here, if an athlete comes to me, and this could be games level, and I don't think that they possess the requisite leg strength to compete in this sport to their highest potential, there's a 3-step process. Step number 1 is higher rep, 12s and 10s and 8s and 6s and all that nasty shit that you are currently doing if you're on Hatchet Offseason 1. Once we make it through that and exhaust it a little bit, we've really kind of pushed the needle at each weight, which again, sounds like via Discord is happening to you guys right now. You're about to transition to the sets of 6. Then we move on to Texas Method. 25 reps in a set, but also, or 25 reps in a set. Yeah. 25 reps, heavy, super heavy reps within a day, but then also going back in and checking on, there's a magical blend of what you need to be able to do within a back squat to be good at a 5 rep max, right? 1 rep max could be, I know from experience,
Stars align and catch a bounce.
Let's go. And then 10 rep max or 20 rep max could have a whole lot more to do with, some other parts of your fitness. 5 rep max is pretty special, especially once you start to get heavy. From there, we ride that out again. We try to be thoughtful. Yeah, the week 1 should be a challenging thing, but if I know I'm going to go for 7 weeks, or if I know an athlete's going to go for, I want them to go for 12 weeks if they've got a younger training age. It's not like your actual 5 rep max.
Should think about it in terms of like, okay, if the goal is theoretically to hopefully add 5 pounds per week to that 5 rep max, maybe 10 if you're depending on who you are, but probably closer to 5 pounds per week. If you just 35 pounds, so 35 pounds over the course of 7 weeks, whatever you hit in week 1, knowing that 35 pounds more than that is what the goal is in week 7. Think about that in terms of like, oh yeah, I'd be stoked to hit 35 more pounds than week 1 weight. And oftentimes that week 1 weight is lower than maybe your ego wants it to be. But again, thinking about that in terms of like, now I have a bit of a runway. And if I hit a 5 rep max at, let's say 335 instead of 300, I'd be stoked. It's like, great. That's a perfect like way to think about how you can kind of progress over the course of the phase
Let me
rather
finish.
than absolute 5 rep max in week 1.
Yes. So we ride that out. And again, we're thinking about it within that context, and we'll give a little bit more specific instructions to you guys. And then we would move on to the Misfit volume, back squat volume cycle. Those 3 in succession with one another create a level of, I have the ability to brace and I have the slower twitch and the supporting musculature, and my central nervous system understands what it's like to work through this. We can develop an athlete over the course of, maybe 20 or 30 weeks, in a really, really powerful way. And in the meantime, we're probably working on how to get better at the Olympic lifts. And then you bring those 2 things together and something very magical can happen. So you guys are going to be doing, the Hatchet community will be doing the volume squat cycle in phase 1. So aside from baseline testing in phase 0, you are going to be boom, 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 those 3 in order. And that's something that, we sort of noticed community wide that felt like a really important thing to get into the Hatchet community. So when it comes to actually executing, Hunter already alluded to the idea of trying to add, 35 pounds, or, we see younger training ages go up 10 pounds a week, but a lot of that has more to do with athlete IQ not quite being there and not knowing where to go. You need to find the gray area in the middle. The black and white thinking would be, I'm going to game the shit out of this, and I'm going to go like 30 pounds under my 5 rep max to start. And then that way I only have to PR once at the end. And then obviously the other side would be true, like number 5 is a fucking grind in week 1. And it's like, you're in trouble. You were probably in deep shit for the rest of it. We have to find that middle ground of, yes, this is still challenging. It's not too challenging, because you will surprise yourself in terms of how well this works and how easy it is to buy into that iterative process of, I can just add 5 more pounds to this. So there's a really good sort of middle ground there. And the one way you could think about it is, maybe I'm going to PR my 5 rep max somewhere between like week 2 and week 5, depending on how heavy you need to go. But really try to think about it from that perspective, because the goal is to add weight every single week, and therefore add weight to the 5x5 every single week.
Yeah. The mentality I was going to just add on to is, while this is not a tempo snatch or tempo clean, which is obviously very skill dependent, one of the things that's really important that occurs during these 5x5s and your 5 rep maxes is that you pay attention to how you move in the back squat and how that would translate to the other Olympic lifts, which they're designed to augment.
Come on, kid, low bar.
So what I am saying here is that while we will not be doing a tempo between 40 and 70% like we are for the snatch and the clean we'll do in this phase, have that same mindset going into it. Like, how will this squat translate to what I am doing? And one of the things I thought was really cool about Discord is, right as the phase started, people were putting their videos of tempo snatches in there, and they're asking like, all right, coaches, critique. I think we should continue that as we start the Texas 5x5, Texas method work, because if you're throwing up the biggest number on the back squat, but it doesn't look anything like your clean or snatch, you might as well not do it if your goal is to improve your clean and jerk or your snatch. If your goal is just to have the heaviest squat in Discord, man, have fun. Load it up, low bar, go for it. But if you're really looking for this stuff to translate, keep posting those videos in Discord and asking the community around you and us coaches, like, what do you think about these squats? And we'll be frank and honest with you. If we don't think they're going to help you translate to getting stronger in the sport of CrossFit, we'll say it. So like an example was someone who's tempo snatching, did an awesome job from the ground to the knee, and then it wasn't a tempo anymore. And the following week, send a second video. noticeably better. And that is the idea behind the Discord channel. In addition to having a community of misfits around you, is to be able to get some feedback like that, because that's what's going to end up moving the needle the most when we're talking about taking your 5x5 and turning it into a 1 rep max clean and jerk or snatch.
Next up is heavy power snatch. I really like the power snatch and the power clean as a tool to teach how to do the full snatch and the full clean. The potentially the most common fault, it sort of depends on if you're a puller or a squatter a little bit, but I would say, would you guys say that bar path, like in terms of sending the bar out, maybe jumping forward or using your hips, is probably more common than the muted hip?
Yeah, for sure.
I would say footwork is maybe the more common fault. If
wasn't one of your choices, but
okay,
thank you.
well, got it. Well, that's what that is. What I would say.
I can I can tell.
Fault.
I can look at someone's feet and tell if they are doing one of those things. So that also is just a way to be like, okay.
Yeah, I guess I'm referring to like the receiving position.
Sure.
So somebody catching in a position that they would never be able to squat from, for example.
Yep. So I really like it because we can exaggerate sort of the cues of what a correct bar path would be. And there are just so many people within the community that over pull basically all squat variations of Olympic lifting, because when you start in CrossFit, there is so much pulling from the floor, and pulling with some level of like velocity and speed is really helpful. You know, being snappy in your, muscle cleans, your muscle snatches, or learning how to do that can help you quite a bit, but it translates not so well to the actual Olympic lifts. So I really like using this as a tool. I would say if you do struggle with that, if you don't really sort of jump the weight up and keep the bar close, that should be your goal within this. So when it says heavy, quote unquote, your max should only be, your training max is a lift that you like what it looks like at the heaviest weight that you can possibly do it. If you've done some sort of heave and pray type of lift in a competition when you're full of adrenaline, or you're just, lifting with your friends, that's great. That is a max, but your actual 1 rep max, when we're talking about trying to get better, especially at the Olympic lifts, should be, that looks the way that I want it to, or it's pretty damn close to looking that way. So really try to hone in on the power variations of the Olympic lifts. Try to hone in on that bar path. If you keep the bar nice and close, all of these other little magical things happen. And I think you can understand weightlifting a lot better if you do that. We have a GPP rotation of push press. What does that mean? That means that we go heavy, and then we go high rep, and then we go drop sets. Drop sets, most easily explained, if we want to get better at pressing, we need to have pressing speed. The upper body is, dominated by fast twitch musculature, mainly because it's not under tension very often, like our lower body is. And of course we work on the ski erg and, the echo bike, and we do these different things to be able to develop that musculature, but we need to be able to press fast. And what's great about drop sets is, let's say we start at 80% for a set of 3 and it feels fast, but if we did 9 more sets at that weight, it would just get slower and slower and slower. And you are teaching your body that at the end of a Metcon, my pressing is slow. No, it doesn't go all that well. So what we do is we do a set at 80, and then we do a set at 75, and then we do a set at 70. And we are trying to move the weight as fast, if not faster, as we go through. And that way we're really sort of using up a lot of that power and teaching our bodies how to be powerful over the course of X number of sets. Dumbbell bench press. This was not added after the announcement of the workout. I got some quick thank you notes for all of the dumbbell bench press that was in the accessory and the program this year from athletes that really needed to work on it. There's been some testing that's done, and it's like, not only, that's one thing about the accessory work that we'll get into later, but we'll toot the horns currently. Not only did the workout and testing go well, but they weren't obliterated from it. Like, doing 50, whatever it is, 55 bench press.
So many people are going to get fucking smashed by that workout. I wonder why they can't do anything the rest of the weekend.
And that's what's so powerful about buying into accessory work over a longer time horizon is you are, again, sort of building up this musculature and the ability to say, you know, it's not surprising there were 60 reps of dumbbell bench press fairly often in the programmed quite a bit, obviously, within remote coaching. There's 55 at potentially even lighter weight.
Yes, Seamus, do your accessory work. Do it.
We'll get there.
Moving on.
Misfit sets on the dumbbell bench press. If you are not familiar with Misfit sets, there's sort of two variations. Sometimes it's based on reps. So let's say I'm doing Misfit sets with muscle ups. I'm going to do 4 sets where I know that I can hit a smooth set of muscle ups. Let's say that's 5. So I do 4 by 5. I'm resting 3 minutes each time. And then I'm doing a max set. And I've chosen the number for the first 4 sets, thinking that I can do more in the max set. So I do 4 by 5, and then I do anywhere from like 7 to 9, hopefully, on the Misfit sets with the muscle ups. When it's weight, we typically give you guys a rep scheme, and the variable that you're choosing is not how many you're doing, but how heavy it's going to be. So within the dumbbell bench press, it's going to be 4 by 10 and then a max set. We want you guys to be in the neighborhood, and this is really important because we see some fucking absurd max set numbers. Ryan McKay, your muscle ups, you're not supposed to be able to do 99 after your Misfits in your max set. Maybe 12 to 18. I always tell people, if you're getting into the neighborhood of doubling that number next week, we're going to go up. And it's, you know what, like pushing yourself to that point is how you get stronger. Only having 0, 1, 2, 3 reps left in the tank is so important to getting stronger. So it's great that you're doing that and you're not doing it wrong. It means you are ready to progress. So again, 4 by 10, let's say we grab 60-pound dumbbells, we do 4 by 10, and then I hit 14. My goal next week is to hit 15 or 16 or 17. And then once I start to flirt with the possibility of that 19 or 20, I'm going to add weight.
I think what's really important that you just said fast, but I think we should kind of double back on is that accessory stuff shouldn't feel like this, like, oh, kind of hard, EMOM. I just kind of
We're going to get there. We're going to do a full accessory.
Yeah, all right, I'll save it then because it's
going to be as long-winded as the accessory work itself.
All right, perfect.
Anything to add on that dumbbell bench press? Meathead time?
Yeah, have fun.
Yeah.
Dumbbell bench is a super fun time.
Tempo clean with a pause in the catch. This is part of a skill progression that we really love, again, for all levels. We get yearly new games athletes that come onto the program and they need positional work and they need tempo stuff because they've relied on the fact that they are gifted and hardworking and haven't bought into the technical aspects and become, you know, a student of the game and a technician when it comes to that. So this is a really powerful thing. I would say the stronger you are, the more you better slow the fuck down. If you're super strong and you send a like sort of clean sort of tempo, well, I don't know why you're even doing it. There's no point in doing it at all. So that's when I would want an athlete to really, like, I mean, you sent me, was it snatch yesterday?
It was snatch.
Yeah. You sent me a snatch yesterday and we both immediately were like, you could slow that down a little. The positioning was really good, but that's one thing that you struggle with. And, I find hilarious about people who can deadlift 1 trillion pounds that try to do a dynamic start within their clean. I don't understand it. If you are an amazing puller, your ability to slow down a little bit and be in these amazing positions before you extend, like that should be your bread and butter. Like, I understand if someone has to learn a dynamic start because of how big they are, how much they weigh, you know, where they fall in the sport in terms of rankings within their 1 rep max lifts. But man, if you can pull, if you're really comfortable with that hook grip and pulling from the floor, slow down. And of course, I don't mean tempo when you're trying to max, but like be under control and hit the positions that you need to. Clean grip RDL. So there's 3 pieces here that's the reason I'm going rapid fire. There are 3 pieces in a row here that are really important to one another. Those clean grip RDLs are essentially, you know, so if we're in tempo, we know that we can't go like heavy. When it comes to the clean grip RDLs, again, potentially a little bit wider than you would normally do in RDL. really want that clean grip to be on there, this is a way where we can start to get into some positions with a pretty significant amount of weight. So you'll notice the progression. We sort of go past, your clean max on these. And then last but not least in the trio here is those heavy power cleans. We are bringing a level of being dynamic to the equation with the clean. So if you are, sort of struggling with that movement right now, I can't think of a better way to get your off season going in terms of improving in the clean by going tempo, RDLs, and then hitting the power cleans. And again, being able to work on being dynamic and understanding the turnover and all that good stuff. All right. Positional snatch work. So if you followed Hatchet Offseason number 1, you just did the tempo work. The next iteration on that is sort of these like practice sets that work into a real set. So you will do 2 positions where, again, you're proving to yourself, I know where my power position is. I know how to move from there. I know where my lower hang position is. I know how to move from there. And then I get to actually snatch. So each time you do a set, you will do 2 positional snatches. And again, really thinking back to what you did with the tempo work. And then we go to the floor and we try to put it all together. If you're still struggling with the positions, it's not necessarily tempo, but it's also not necessarily game speed. So if you are really great with a barbell, like where, the leash is coming off. If you're really great with a barbell, move well in your 2 hang positions and then get after it from the floor. If you're still trying to figure that out, try to find what speed you can add to the pull without, sort of completely changing how you moved throughout all of the tempo stuff.
I think it's just important for folks to kind of take a step back and remember that the hang and the positional variants of the Olympic lifts are there to exercise a specific segment of the full lift, right? So it's not a hang power snatch from above the knee or a hang squat snatch, from above the knee doesn't exist for the purpose of getting stronger at a hang power snatch from above the knee. It's let's focus on maybe just eliminating the complexity of from the floor and around the kneecap, and we can really just focus on acceleration into the power position. If we're going from below the knee, the purpose there is figuring out how to basically go around the knee, which is where most CrossFitters and frankly most Olympic weightlifters get jammed up, because that transition around the knee is challenging to keep the bar in the right spot. So it kind of goes back to the thinking about how you move sort of thing, but also keeping in mind, like, what's the purpose of this lift? What am I trying to, and what are we trying to get as far as translation to maybe the full lift?
Last but not least, we have Misfit sets of overhead walking lunges with the barbell. I think this is a really good candidate to pair with accessory work, even if you only get to do accessory work once a week. Because there is the element of the lift, the carry, and the hold all built into this movement. And we can understand why we would want to get better at these things. We can get better at bracing. We can get better, more comfortable with holding implements overhead. And then obviously we got to move this thing. We got to, move through space while we're locked in with our midline. We're locked in, up overhead, and we have the supporting musculature to keep it there and stay in these positions while we're actually moving. So same concept. You're going to choose the weight for the 4x10, and then you're going to go for the max set. This one could take a little bit of guesswork, right? So like you think you chose the right weight, maybe your 4x10 turns into a 5x10 because you're like, oops, that's a warm-up weight. Like I don't necessarily need to do that. Or you can just, move really well, basically. And I do want to...
Go ahead.
I do want to segue into accessory, but if you have anything about that.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, like, it's not going to say that we put them on the same day on purpose for this reason, but the snatch and the overhead walking lunge on the same day provides you with a pretty good litmus test for your personal mobility. The overhead walking lunge, especially if you find yourself in a weird position where your knees like tracking way over your toe, or you have to really like overextend in your trunk to keep that bar right over the middle of your foot or the middle of your hip when you're lunging. This is like, we talked about the idea of getting strong over the off season and learning to move well. Like that all of that is predicated on the idea that you have the capacity to move well. Because it's really easy for us to look at a video and be like, yeah, squat lower, or why, get the barbell, stop sending the barbell out in front of you. And it's like, well, my shoulders don't really go in that direction, so I'm working with what I got. It's like, you're not working with what, stop fucking working with what you got. Like, what you got is bad. Fix that. So like working on the mobility, working on the ability to get in the right position so that you can actually move the barbell correctly is often something that gets missed because we don't program like mobility specific stuff. But like that's the foundation. If you can't get into positions because your body doesn't bend that way, that is like a hard stop right there, and figuring out, okay, what do I need to address to open up access to these ranges of motion?
That could be a litmus test for, do I want to do another conditioning piece, or I do have to do another lift, or should I spend those 45 minutes fixing that stuff so that this skill transfer that we're out there putting out in the world, like, this should happen. Well, if you can't get in the position, it's not going to happen. So what's a better return on your investment? It's just like you said, go grab the peanut out of the mobility bucket, dig into those, those erectors, dig into your lats, fix your scaps, deltoids, whatever it is.
People are real quick to hop on a progression of building strength, but not so quick to hop on a progression of improving ranges of motion and stuff like that. So don't be that guy.
Outside of those people have been doing those overhead squat holds, because those have looked really good recently.
All right. So the accessory work, this is a hot topic on Discord. We've talked a lot about it from the coaching aspect internally, a lot of conversation from our athletes, from our remote coaches. Simply put, what is on there is the most ideal scenario. And we know athletes who, could be high level quarterfinals, semifinals athletes, if they had more time or their goals were a little bit different, that are on this program. I can't sleep at night if I put out versions of things that I think are the most adoptable and that we can convince people to do more, which we used to do. We've gotten away from quite a bit with different categories. So again, the 6 rounds with the long rest and the 5 rounds and the 4 rounds every single day is the most ideal scenario for an athlete trying to make it from quarterfinals to semifinals level. That's exactly what that is. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I do understand that presents the possibility for paralysis by analysis when it comes to looking at this stuff. But let's simplify this really quick, right? You look at the session and you say to yourself, I need 1 of these, or I need 2 of these, or holy shit, I need all 3. All of those scenarios are acceptable with any amount of time that you have left if you're willing to do another piece, because 6-5-4 can become 5-4-3 or 4-3-2 when we're working through this stuff. We can knock down the rest. We can superset, so you can do rounds of this. So you can do 3 rounds total where it's just boom, boom, boom. You're working through. What I will say is we do not ever fail in accessory work. If you're too much of a meathead and can't handle, just doing, seated dumbbell press with 20s, then you're not understanding what we're trying to accomplish within this. This is not another lifting session. This is not another conditioning piece. This is not CrossFit. This is accessory work, right? So when we go into this stuff, we're going to shorten the rest. Obviously, if I can't rest as much, then I'm not going to be able to do as much weight when I'm doing this. So again, really try to think about, how much time do I have left? What of these things do I need? And there will be days where you look at it and you go, my mobility here is really good. Like, my grip strength is awesome. I want to put a lot of eggs into the basket of, like, we've done dumbbell bench and now I want to go, pair it with the dumbbell strict press. And I'm going to get that done. And that's going to be my thing for the day. That is 100% totally fine. But when we watch what happens to the athletes who buy in to doing this at the highest levels, we're talking about going from not qualifying for the CrossFit Games to qualifying for the CrossFit Games. We're talking about, both of my athletes that I got to like really buy into this stuff and take the, upwards of an hour a day to do their accessory work, look a lot different than other athletes do right now, getting into some of these sandbag holds and dumbbell bench press. And, you know, on the team side, obviously there's, you got to hold this position.
We predicted it again.
Yeah. we program the movements that are in the sport. So you need to do your accessory work if you are trying to succeed in quarterfinals, I would say. I'd say that's where this journey begins. One thing that's kind of cool about accessory work is if you are an open athlete and you do have free time on your active rest days, great place to put some accessory work. As long as you're not like really beating the shit out of yourself. If you go grab 100-pound dumbbells and do the rear foot elevated RDLs, that ain't no rest day. Luca couldn't walk for a week after the first time that he did those. So just maybe take it easy on that. But things like pressing, you know, dead hang for traction, all of these different pieces. And, you know, when it comes to the actual categories themselves, most days you're going to see a lift, a carry, and a hold. And just think about the sport itself and the time under tension and the bracing when you have to breathe heavy and how all of that stuff could help you. It's injury prevention. It's, again, the ability to brace. It's the ability to eke out those last couple of reps when you're racing someone in something like a lunge. There's so much to it. We just have to figure out, and, you know, we'll help you in Discord, discord.gg/Misfit Athletics, free community to talk about the programming. We will help you figure it out, but you need to figure out what your level of accessory program is and need to buy into it, because I promise you it helps so much. And I know for CrossFitters that compared to, you know, 500 meter rows, this could be as boring as hell, but it's just one of those delayed gratification things where you have that moment in the open where you're like, how am I still doing toes to bar right now? Well, it's because you got strong grip, strong hip flexors, and you're fit because you did all this other shit. So we're there, we're in Discord, you know, throw some ideas out there. This is my accessory plan for the week. I'm going to try it out the next week. I didn't have enough time for this. I'm thinking about this, whatever. Like, let's bounce those things off of each other, because figuring out what your personal accessory program is, I promise you it's going to help. Like, it will.
The down the road payoff is the hardest thing for you to understand when you're doing these sessions, because you might not feel in the day to day that you're making the progress that you hope to make. But then when you go to Wadapalooza and they have dumbbell bench press and you can do it, or like you just said, the open shows up and you do sets of 25 toes to bar instead of sets of 15 toes to bar, that's when this stuff pays off. And I can't speak more highly about the injury prevention. Like, typically after trying to be competitive in a season, things like shoulders, wrists, and elbows are constantly bothering me, but the addition of doing handstand holds and dead hangs alternating basically every single day for the last 8 months has made a tremendous improvement in the quality of those tissues. And now the supporting musculature around those joints are able to withstand a heavy snatch and clean and jerk session in the same day, or, you know, 500 feet of handstand walking and strict handstand pushups in the same day. That is why you would want to do it. And the only thing I was going to add to what you said there is that while a lot of these movements, we need to be thinking about what is the quality, there are going to be certain elements that need to be done heavy for you to get the intended benefit. So if you're someone who wants to get stronger at pressing, for example, when you dig out the 25-pound dumbbells for bench press, that ain't going to get it done. Or if you're someone that's like, man, I really wish my grip was stronger, let me see if I can farmer hold my normal 35-pound dumbbells for a minute. If you're not pushing yourself in the accessory in a way that is both focused on bracing, quality of movement, and just thinking about what the bigger picture is, that is when an athlete might get frustrated with the accessory stuff not paying off for them. So just try to think about the accessory from the standpoint of like, what could this make me better at? And that should help steer your decision to go heavy, moderate, light, or spend more time on like, I really just need to be in a really good plank where I'm squeezing the whole shit out of my body and it's nothing else other than just me squeezing super tight.
Squeezing the whole shit out of my body.
Squeeze the whole shit.
Jesus.
Not the half shit, the whole shit.
Hunter, what do you think about accessory work?
I think it's permission to not do things to failure at low intensity, and I think I'm an accessory athlete now. I've moved on from. Yep, I was a weightlifter for 20 minutes, and then did marathon. I CrossFitted for 2 minutes, and now I'm an accessory athlete. So
I like that.
No, it's low intensity for quality movement, where we're telling you to not go to like metabolic or muscular failure. It sounds like a blast. Do your accessory work.
I like it. All right. You guys get the fun one, Metcon and interval talk. Go. CrossFit. What do you have to say about it?
That was it. Next. We've got some pretty excited about the sprintervals. So
let them know. Any new followers, new listeners.
Yeah,
what's a sprinterval?
The sprinterval is something that we did in the semifinals prep in kind of with the intention of simulating that sort of final event feel, where it's like 30 cal echo bike, 20 muscle ups, 10 cleans, sandbag cleans,
the final,
like the
right?
final, right? Or 3 rounds of biking toes to bar and sandbag cleans, a very high intensity, short kind of duration style test where we basically program probably 2 or 3 rounds of the sprinterval with a fuckload of rest, kind of with the intention of, hey, whether it's 3 rounds of the same thing repeated, where we're going to say, hey, on that first round, you should figure out where this breaks down for you. And what that means is typically going as hard as is appropriate for the test, maybe a little bit harder than that, so that, again, you're finding that threshold. And then maybe on rounds 2 and 3 of a 3-round sprinterval, it's okay, now adapt, take what you know, take what you learned about where your metabolic capacity and threshold is, and then manipulate the reps, the time domain, whatever, in order to get the best possible score. So that's basically been the instructions that I've given my athletes as far as the approach for the sprinterval. It's kind of round 1, send it and see what happens. Round 2, dial it back to see what the best strategy is for the best score. But we basically continue with these sprintervals throughout, particularly for games prep, but they're fun pieces to do from a training perspective.
We've always loved it's a part of Misfit Athletics has been this work where we have to commit to something that we know in hindsight will be real lovely, right? And it's about turning off the brain and going into the body and finding the limits of what it's able to do. And man, we could do a whole podcast on the benefits of that from a bunch of different perspectives looking at it. But at the end of the day, this gives you an ability to prove yourself right or wrong in so many different areas. The very first sprinterval that one of my athletes did for semifinals, it was like off of the gymnastics and onto the barbell. There's no thinking. You have to do that. We can say whatever we want about whatever we want. Sure, go next door and do this workout unbroken. I'm saying words. Is what I'm saying possible?
Do it.
Will it be the thing that you do? He was able to get faster in round 2 because he took a beat before grabbing the barbell and then was like, I don't fucking need to do this. And that was actually one of those moments where it was like, wow, accessory work, like the ability to move, embrace while you're breathing that heavy. And then round 2 was significantly faster than round 1, even though the instructions were to send round 1. So that is another thing that's possible within this is, wow, I thought that was my send and it's not. Right. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep pushing to this place. So we are taking the idea of the assault bike sprint or, the 500-meter row or whatever, and we are CrossFitifying it so that you can really learn what you're capable of. And too many benefits to list them all in this podcast.
Yeah, and another thing that's really fun about this part of the year is just you get a bigger playbook. There are more things to throw down with. There are things like pegboards and parallel handstand push-ups. And, in addition to having those things, we'll talk about how do you modify them if you're not someone who's quite ready for, a 12-inch deficit handstand push-up or you haven't figured out how to climb the pegboard. These are things they're going to have alternative options for, but also would strongly encourage you to spend 10, 15 minutes before a workout trying these things. Like one of the biggest barriers to adopting a new skill is the apprehension that occurs at the very beginning of that. Like, oh, I just can't fucking do this. Well, it's like none of us could climb a pegboard until we just said, all right, let's see if we can put the pegs in the wall and move it up and down 1. And then, all right, let's go up 3 and then back down 1. And eventually we're climbing the pegboard for repeated reps or performing legless rope climbs or seated legless rope climbs or, presses to handstand. These are things that, are going to be in the programming and we're going to encourage you to try to adopt and try. And if you haven't figured them out yet, skill session beforehand and then use the modifications that provide you so you get a good workout and then just realize like, oh, next time it comes around, maybe I can take the skill that I built last session and kind of expand upon it for the following session. So, it gives you a chance to kind of play around with some of these implements that are things that you don't get to use most of the year, and a chance to kind of figure them out and figure out what is the missing element there. Is that I'm not strong enough in my pulling strength or my pressing strength missing? And that's another nod to go back to your accessory work and all your strength work and be like, all right, this is the missing element. And I want to make sure that next time it comes up that I hopefully can build upon what I learned last time.
Here's a question for the group. I am an athlete. I'm either an open athlete or an athlete on the strength track.
Yep.
So in both of those scenarios, I'm going to choose a conditioning piece, right?
Yep.
One. How many days per week should that be CrossFit, Metcon, and interval versus how many days per week should that be bitch work where it's just straight monostructural?
That's a good question. I think with an open athlete specifically, I would start there and I would say we have the sort of 3 days in a row, 1 off, 2 days in a row. I like the idea of athletes having a mix of those things within what I consider a chunk. So one bitch work piece, at least one bitch work piece within the 3 day, and then at least one within the 2 day. We develop too much and learn too much from those pieces to have that not be a significant part of our journey. Even if you're a machine person, I can move the needle further with you because of the intensity that you bring to machines. I would say 3 would be the most though. So it'd be 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then the other ones would be Metcon versus interval. And a lot of that is going to be you choosing, more stimulus and time domain that you need to get into. Just make sure that you're not overcorrecting and magically only doing intervals or magically only doing Metcons.
Yeah, I like to lean a little bit more towards the bitch work this time of season just because I think it allows people to kind of train energy systems unless there's a movement in one of the Metcons or intervals that is clearly an issue for you that you're trying to figure out or work on. So I do think it's important in the sport to do the sport. You have to do Metcons, you have to do intervals, but I would almost lean sort of on the other side of that, like 2/3 fraction for most athletes, because I really like, and I've seen firsthand what it's done for myself and other athletes who really gravitate towards doing the bitch work and I'm like, going head first into it and just saying, you know what, I'm going to pay very close attention to the pacing instructions and I'm going to try to figure out this gear in the car, because I do think that bitch work stuff ends up translating across the entire spectrum of what you have to do. And if you can do it at the instruction, or you can follow along with the instructions that are provided for you, you're going to develop all these different gears in your fitness, from the 10-second all-out assault bike sprint all the way to what is my 75-minute MAF. That entire spectrum can be accomplished by one single machine. Now, create variety, don't do the same machine all the time, but realize that takes out a tremendous amount of this skill element, which can ultimately hold an athlete back because the skill, outpaces their ability to stay under control. And all of a sudden their heart rate's at 190 and they can't stay moving. Whereas that process is a bit more iterative on a machine. And you have that screen staring you in the face being like, well, no wonder your heart rate's at 190. You went from a 205 to a 135. It makes a lot of sense why it jumps so high. And you can have a little bit more data, a little bit more, it's a little bit more interactive, and there's something to stare at that can kind of give you hard and fast data why your body responded the way that you did. And then when you can make those connections, you can start to hopefully take the feelings you get in all of your bitch work pieces and say, all right, I felt like this when I was doing the 5x5 minute assault bike, and I realized that's 25 minutes of work. Now I'm about to do another 5x5 minute interval with about the same amount of work to rest. How should I feel? And ideally, hopefully they feel somewhat similar in terms of the stimulus provided and how you feel. And that can educate you whether or not you need to ramp up just a little bit or back off a bit, because you found out last time you did the assault bike intervals, round 3, you went a little too hot, and then the next 2 rounds were kind of, not great. So I tend to lean a little bit more towards the bitch work this time of season, but you still do need to be doing Metcons and intervals, especially if they contain something that you need to be working on.
You have an answer to that?
Yeah, I was going to say 2 or 3. Kind of depends on who you are, taking advantage of the week in advance and making sure that, again, you're not accidentally biasing like only the long, slow stuff, only the high power output stuff, only the rowing stuff like that. Yeah.
One big change internally that won't show itself, potentially day to day to you guys though, is the fact that if you're following a program at misfitathletics.com, ta-da, the 3 of us wrote that program. Anything that's being put out there is now the 3 of us. So you can blame us or thank us in different moments. But one thing that allows us to develop a level of continuity and to bring the community together, being the ones writing MFT and writing Hatchet, is being able to say, I have this Metcon here all the way up at the top. This Metcon is being done by someone who's preparing to be in the top 10 at the CrossFit Games. how does that Metcon become something that is appropriate for each level all the way down the line? So we have MFT, we have Hatchet, which is a different workout altogether, in terms of how much weight it is, maybe how many rounds, how long the AMRAP is, whatever it is. And then we have scaling and equipment modifications for every single workout that have been beefed up and, taken to a level of, I truly believe that Hatchet Offseason 2 could be followed by any skill level whatsoever. If you compete in the CrossFit Open or you compete in the CrossFit Games and everywhere and anywhere in between those two things, we have a version of this workout for you. And a lot of days, these are going to be, the same type of workout. And I love the idea that an entire community can be following. Just like you walk into a CrossFit class on one of those days where it's a real crazy workout and everyone's working out together. Everyone is sort of attacking the same stimulus, the same time domain, but this person's got this little change. This person's got this little change. That will be the case for you guys in terms of scaling. What am I supposed to do if I can't do X or I can't do this many? And then I'm in my garage and I only have this equipment. All of the machine conversions are in there. Everything that you're looking for in terms of trying to figure out what is the best workout for you and your equipment is in there. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add to that, but I just think it's really important to put out there, like top to bottom, there's a level of continuity. I think that is going to change the Misfit community in some really positive ways in 2024.
Leaning into Discord is one of the best ways to make sure that you're making the correct judgment calls when it comes to tailoring these workouts for you. You look in the Discord
and
channel.
The fitter leaderboard, right? Like if we're saying it's the same time domain or roughly the same score, there should be, a certain tolerance, 10% or something.
Yeah, there's a little bit of, there's a range that athletes can fall in. But if you look at that leaderboard and you see Caroline did the workout in 8 minutes, it took you 18, something went wrong with the way you were tailoring it.
Or there was pressing.
Yeah, well, that could be that too. You have strict handstand push-ups. Good luck to you. But the same idea here is if you're not in the same ballpark as the rest of the community, that's a sign that maybe you're doing a level of this workout that's a bit too advanced, and that's not a fail. It's just a lesson. I don't want people to get so wrapped up in they do 2 or 3 Metcons. They're fucking 5 minutes slower than everybody else. And they go, throw papers in the air. Fuck this. I suck. That's not what we're saying. We're saying tinker. The more in line you are with the rest of the community in terms of time domains and scores, the better stimulus you're getting, the quicker you're going to advance. The slowest way to try to advance is try to be like, I'm just going to beat my head against this door and eventually I'll break through it. That is the slowest path to the most resistance to get as fit as possible. The way you want to tailor this is how can I make my version of this workout put me in the same arena as the fittest people that I idolize?
Truth. There was a third answer to Hunter's question that I can sort of get to now, and that is just since you guys will be following along with some of the game stuff, there is a version of interval that is bitch work and sort of CrossFit mixed together. In the past, we've called it bitchnastics. It's not only gymnastics that are with it, but it's this idea of, let's say we had a workout that was 6 by 400 meter run. We now want to know if you're doing that at the same intensity with the same rest, what happens if you have to do pistols before the run and after the run? What happens if you got a row and then try to climb the pegboard? What happens? They asked you guys to do some pretty crazy lifting within quarterfinals in the burpee box jump over workout. What happens if you get on an echo bike and ride yourself into the ground and then have to go put your hands on a barbell? So there is an in between there. Those will be on day 6 every single week, and they're unique enough that I think there will be weeks where it makes a whole lot of sense for you to do them and weeks where it doesn't, just based on, this is my machine and I don't care if you make me do muscle ups after the rower, that doesn't mess with me, or the exact opposite. And like me, I love muscle ups. If I row 1 meter and then jump up on the rings, my body explodes and I end up in purgatory. So yeah.
I just find this style of training has application for every athlete in some regard. If you're amazing at gymnastics, let's see how amazing they are when we fuck you up on the assault bike. If you're someone who's, amazing at the machine, but the gymnastics is the issue. All right, play the machine a little bit safer. And then you have 8 rounds. Every round, creep up 50 watts and see what happens. There's so much data collection that happens in a bitch gymnastic piece that I think that if you're just doing it to do it without really leaning into the data collection that you can have there, it's a good session, but it's not what it could be. And that's one of my favorite ways. Oh, you think you're good at muscle ups? Let's find out. And here's how we're going to practice.
I love that you took the S off it. Now I'm thinking if someone does well, I'll go, that's bitch-nastic. Kind of like,
I like where it says Biff-nastics in here. So I was going to use,
Biff. Yeah.
Mike Tyson was here.
The autocorrect didn't like the B word.
Biff.
Anything on that, Hunter?
No.
Want to talk about? So we'll get into. We keep saying the word bitch by accident. Monostructural work.
Female dog.
Time domain comparisons. This is one that I think is really important to understand. Again, within this hierarchy of I want to compare where I'm at to an MFT athlete. When I write monostructural work for the whole phase for you guys, I'm going in and saying to myself, within these time domains and at these gears and at these speeds, am I getting an athlete to go through, I am in whatever, 6th gear for 4 minutes and then a certain amount of rest. And at the end of the day, I'm basically trying to get you guys into zone 5 and into zone 2 on a pretty regular basis so that we can come back together and operate somewhere in between those places when we're doing it. That means that if I'm asking an athlete who can hold a 130 pace all day on the rower, that I would either need to make it an AMRAP or adjust your distance or adjust your total rounds to be able to get you to that point. It's not scaling in a sense that I don't think you can row a 1K. It's that I am trying to get you to row at a specific speed for a specific period of time. So when you're looking at comparisons of Hatchet to MFT, when you're going through this, just try to think about it in terms of I'm getting you a similar amount of volume in terms of time and intensity. Because what I don't want, especially within these aerobic pieces, are these really long pieces where you're like just barely above that zone 2. And games athletes all the way up at zone 5 because they can push themselves for X period of time. So that time domain comparison is one way that you can sort of compare program to program.
And I think this, and I don't know if you've said this on the podcast, I don't derail us too long, but that story of Luca talking about the 4-minute rest between the 500s and doing them at 130 as opposed to, I would have just made this 1 minute of rest because I can do this pace. Like the difference in the gears there is like when you look at the programming, it's not just the work that you have to pay attention to, it's also the rest. The rest helps dictate those gears. So I don't know if you have like a quick 2-minute version of that story, but I think it's really interesting. And I think people would really gravitate and understand why it's so important to pay attention to that.
9 by 500 meter row with 1 minute rest, 2 minutes rest, 3 minutes rest, and 4 minutes rest are 4 different workouts. They're 4 different gears. They're 4 different places mentally and physically that you need to go to. And sometimes athletes at a higher level will identify 4 minutes as too much rest. And if that's the case, then I know that they are scared of zone 5, the peak of zone 5 and going to that place. And in the past, Luca probably would have done 2 or 3 minutes rest and rode at a 133 the whole time and been like, great. He asked himself, can I hold a 130 for all of these and actually listen to my coach and do 4 minutes rest? He ended up with a 129 point something for 9 by 500.
Easy.
I can do that for
with 4 minutes rest. And there's something special about understanding that. And there's an athlete IQ element to that because you are spending, the idea to me was spending 15 minutes I wrote that piece thinking, is there anyone who can spend 15 minutes at a 130? Because that's a day. That's a fucking day for you.
That's a year, kid. Come on. Yeah,
and it doesn't matter what your 130 is. A 135, a 140, a 145. For me, that's probably all the way up at a 150. But my graph would look exactly like his and be in that spot. So it's just a different workout. It's a totally different workout. So understanding that that's what we're trying to do. I need athletes to spend time at 125, 130, 135, 140, 145, 150 And so
It's also really important there. Like if you're in a situation where you're crunched on time, I'd rather see you stick with 4 rounds of 500 meter row with 4 minutes rest than to turn that 9 rounder into 1 minute rest. Cause it's a very different workout. So, I think that's an important thing to acknowledge. If you're looking at a piece and you clearly don't like zone 5, like you just described, like you're maybe a little adverse to being in that situation.
what do you know about zone 5?
Yeah, I don't know. When you get there, when you get to this piece and you're like, all right, I only have 30 minutes left. I'm just going to make this 500 meter row 1 minute off. That is a very different workout than 4 minutes
good workout.
rest. It's still a workout, but like if you're in the situation where like you clearly identify that this is a weakness of yours, going to that high end gear and living there for a little bit, you're better off doing 4 rounds with that 4 minute rest as opposed to trying to squeeze 9 rounds in the 30-minute window. It's just understanding what you need as an athlete and figuring out what is the best version of that if you have to create some sort of Frankenstein version of the bitch work, or any piece for that matter.
When we are looking at your math sessions, new listeners to the podcast, new followers of the program, that is zone 2 work. We are trying to keep you below 180 minus your age in terms of heart rate. We have a longer progression. It's summertime. We have the ability to go run outside in most places. We have some road bike stuff in there. If you do have a road bike and you want to get outside, there's some instructions on how to tackle that with this whole idea of like, how do I map if there's hills? We get you sort of figured out when it comes to that. How do I, what should I do if it's a flat course, whatever. That's just an option. So you can go and pick your weakest machine otherwise. And we'll just go through a little bit of a longer thing. That's going to help you a ton physically, being able to spend more hours per week in zone 2, and then desensitizes you to your sort of normal 45-minute sessions that you're going to see quite a bit during the actual season. We got swim workouts. Anyone who wants to get into the swimming progression and work on, getting into the water, we've got pool workouts. We've got open water workouts. We've even got some like get out of the pool or the lake and, do some burpees or things of that nature mixed in there. And again, those are optional. Those are pieces that you can add to it. I would say that skill acquisition itself is a skill. So your ability to have an open mind and try to go get better at things will make you essentially better at everything from both a physical and mental standpoint. Last but not least, sort of already said it, but this applies to everything that we've been talking about. It's running season. There's a really good chance that you're going to see running upwards of 3 times a week. And you know what? It's kind of because it's the best thing that you can do. So
I just think of like a return on investment there when it comes to running. Like there is very few people in the world that don't need more running work. I just can't think of very many athletes that would not benefit from some sort of running, both from like the supporting your own body weight as you move, but also things just like, whoa, getting snappy over there. Easy on that finger, guy. But also just in terms of just the time spent moving your own body and what that does for, you're talking about your zone 2, your zone 3, zone 4, zone 5, all of these things that we're trying to improve upon. I can't think of a better stimulus for most athletes than running. It's just, suck it up, buy some running shoes, learn to love it, and you'll be fitter for it.
Another thing that, potentially will be new for people listening to this podcast, a yearly tradition at misfitathletics.com is pausing our programming for an entire week every single year and doing mock games. Our athletes simulate the CrossFit games that are headed to the CrossFit games, and then we have the Hatchet mock games. It's meant to be, again, in the most ideal scenario, 14 events over 4 days. So the schedule itself, you can obviously, you're going to see the week in advance, and we're going to post the mock games events for everybody, whether you subscribe or not, just to try to get more people to, sort of join the community and test these things out. But essentially we are, sort of, it's got a real, on the Hatchet side, it has a community vibe to it. We encourage you to try to find other athletes, make that weekend trip where you get a little road trip somewhere, get together, do these workouts together, test yourself out in some different domains. Scaling and equipment modifications and all that stuff will make sure that you guys are set no matter where you're at, sort of in your journey or what you have access to. But it's a really fun time of year. You can do one event, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14. You can figure out, you can cherry pick. Again, the idea, do some stuff where you're getting outside of the take a little bit of a break from it's this percentage and it's that percentage and you're resting this many minutes and whatever, and just go in and, you know, create yourself a little mini competition.
I'd go in with a mindset of as if you were approaching quarterfinals. Like if you look at the quarterfinals event, you might have something, you know, you're an athlete that's like maybe an open level athlete and you're like, I just like to see how I would do in a quarterfinals workout. I would think of mock games a very similar way. Now there are obviously some situations where you might have to modify something because you might not have a yoke or you know, a torque tank. I don't think there's torque tank in the programming, but the idea here is you might have an implement you might not have and possess, or it might be a little bit outside of what feels like your comfortable area of percentages or weights. If it's within reason, you can do it somewhat safely. Like I would encourage you to just throw your hat in the ring and see what happens. Now, throughout the rest of the year, when we're training and maybe not testing, because the mock game is meant to be like this little test in the middle of the phase, like it's appropriate to modify to make sure you get a good workout. But if it's within reason that you could do one of these workouts, like take a swing and see what happens, and then take notes afterwards about what went well, what could have gone better. And, you know, it might put a magnifying glass on things that you need to address as we kind of come up on the next competitive season.
True.
Cheer.
I won't take too much time on the skill, especially considering it is a progression from Hatchet Offseason 1. For new listeners, what you can expect within the skill category, muscle ups. Option A is linear progression. You're basically just going in and trying to build on, you know, adding to your sets each week. Option B is skill building. Our goal with the skill building is to get an athlete ready to be able to start incorporating muscle ups into their skill work by phase 1. So take the time to go through the positions. There is a level of monotony here within this stuff, but the only reason we're programming it is because we've done it with so many athletes and it's worked. So we would not put you through something that we thought was long and boring. Probably not the best sales tactic if it didn't actually work. So if you guys can stick with us for another 8 weeks, there's a really good chance that you're going to be able to start sprinkling in muscle ups into your skill work. And then before you know it, you know, those become appropriate for actual conditioning pieces. Linear progression on the handstand walk. You walk this far this week, and then you walk a little farther next week, and you walk a little further after that. Total volume actually goes down, but the chunks that you have to attack go up. So if you're doing 300 total feet in week 1, you might be all the way down to 200 total feet in week 8, but you have to do it maybe in 1 or 2 sets, something like that. Toes to bar. 6 sets of toes to bar.
Damn, they work.
And again and again. And it works. I'm telling you, it works. And it works if you're really good at them too. Because again, we've gotten into some of the semifinals testing now. And I can tell you that in that sprint workout, if you don't play that workout correctly, that third set of 20 toes to bar could make or break your season. And the athletes who bought into the 6x,
that last set toast bar could be 35 seconds or 3 minutes. It all depends on how you've been training them.
Truth. Bar muscle up, ladders and chest to bar EMOMs. We're just, you know, we're climbing the ladder. We're adding reps. We're getting better at the movements. Another option A, option B, when it comes to handstand push-ups. Option A, do handstand push-ups. Option B, strict handstand push-up skill and capacity building. And again, delayed gratification. Please trust us. We've been coaching at the affiliate level now for 14 years. And we know how to get athletes better that are willing to hang out for 10, 15 minutes after class and do their handstand holds and do their push-ups and really start to learn how to do this stuff. Get yourself in the right positions, get a little bit stronger. Last but not least, we will put you through some real funky shit with kettlebells and dumbbells so that you feel like you know what to do when Boz makes up another movement. Ted, if AP Bosman at CrossFit.com is subscribed to Misfit Athletics for those sprintervals, make sure you give him a 100% off discount code.
That's where he's getting them from.
MFT. Holy shit. Congratulations. It hasn't happened yet in real life, but maybe you qualify for the CrossFit Games and you're like, these guys are great. They're so cool. I want to follow. Contact us. There's a million ways to contact us. We're all on Instagram. Misfit Athletics is on Instagram. We got a website. We probably have other places you can contact us. Just reach out. Let us know. Masters, teens, teams, individuals.
Doesn't matter who.
Doesn't matter who. If you're preparing for the CrossFit Games, you want to be a part of something, you want to be invited to one of our athlete training camps over the summer, shoot us a message. We'll get you involved. We'll get you, set
don't
up
make
with a
that
plan.
journey lonely. Lean into other people and lean into help. Like that is one thing that always funny. It occurs like right after the CrossFit Games. If someone will reach out to our company and be like, "Hey, I want help for next season?" It's like, man, if only he had reached out right after you'd qualified from semifinals, we could be making that progress right now. We'd already be halfway through some of the big things that we could accomplish here. So don't wait. You qualify. You need guidance. Here's where to look.
Hunter and I are going to play good cop, bad cop for, you can guess which cop you are, Hunter, for,
a good one.
for final
Congrats.
thoughts. And the only reason I say this, because I don't think he would use the words I'm about to use. It's fitting that this is the most fun phase that we have all year long, because there are times when living in Maine isn't that fun. And right now, the vibe and the mood over at Misfit Gym Portland with those bay doors up is kind of great, right? So there's something to like, you know what? I don't want to be up in the Austin's stuffy sad loft. I want to get on my road bike and go outside. I want to, tarps off and go for a jog. This being able to bring more people from the community onto the same program and work together and challenge each other and, support each other. Again, just feels fitting because that's how it feels in Maine right now. So please lean into that. Hard work can be fun sometimes. But from just, really a macro sense, having a positive attitude about the way that you're attacking this phase and, maybe saying to yourself, I am a garage gym athlete, but I'm going to commit to going to an affiliate so I can find the equipment for mock games or whatever it is. Like, make this social, community driven, get yourself outside, like use this time of year to make your training a little bit more fun, because before you know it, it's going to be November and you're going to be doing another set of back squats and you're going to question certain things. And we'll help you work through that as well. But there's something about the level of motivation that is kind of on autopilot a little bit during the summer because things are just a little bit more fun. Please lean into that.
Yeah, say like mentality dictates reality here. Like if you go into the session like, oh, ho-hum, I'm stuck doing this boring thing again. I'm on week 13 of a 98-week progression and I feel like I'm not getting better. Wrong perspective. You have set yourself up for a very long journey, but when you go through your competitive season and you've made tremendous strides over last season and you get a chance to show out all that hard work and all that dedication where, the buddies were like, oh, I wish I had muscle-ups like yours. It just, magically happens.
Must be nice.
That doesn't happen. You didn't see all those Saturdays where right after our community class, I'm in the gym swinging on rings, literally just doing ring kips for 25 minutes after class. And you're wondering why I'm so much better at them now. It's because I was willing to do that and you weren't. So instead of like poo-pooing them, encourage them to join you in that because it's always more fun with friends.
If you want to see me doing some like seriously intimidating shadow boxing, say it must be nice in front of me. Just do it. Come on. I'll show you.
So say it.
I'll put my hood up. I'll dim the lights as a nice shadow. Couple lefts, couple rights. You don't know.
Spaghetti. I think my final thoughts are just to continue. If you're continuing from the off season one, is there's basically a nice transition through the next 8 weeks of programming. And if you're new, people will ask this: should I go back 8 weeks and start Hatchet off season one? No, just jump in to off season two. But if you if you kind of set out in off season one to follow that, the strength or conditioning track or balance track, like I would encourage you to continue along that path. There's still a long ways until the next season kind of kicks off. And there's a lot of opportunities to, if you do happen to skew yourself in one direction and get really strong and find that you're maybe a little less fit than you were 8 weeks from now, that's okay. Like there's still plenty of time and the program will ensure that you are as prepared as possible for the upcoming season. So especially this far away from the competitive time frame, don't be afraid to continue kind of leaning into the things that really derailed maybe your season last year or just, are things that you need to work on, whether it's the strength or conditioning stuff. A lot of time between now and the next season. So kind of stay the course. Don't get, the shiny object syndrome within the off season phase. It's not the time. There's never really a time for that, but you know what I mean.
So many of our releases at Sharpen the Axe are 1, 2, 3, 4 items, and you want to go in and support the athletes, but we don't have the item that you're looking for. These 2 semifinals collections, Sharpen the Axe and Misfit Athletics, are wide ranging. One of the biggest collections that we've done in a very long time. And that means you have a lot of opportunities to go in and get what we think is some pretty great gear, and also support the athletes at the time when they need it most. They are emptying their bank accounts to do semifinals, and then their reward for qualifying for the CrossFit Games will be to figure out how to fill it again before they empty it again. And if you had to sharpentheaxeco.com and use their athlete code, it makes a real difference within their season, getting them through semifinals and getting them through the games. MisfitAthletics.com. Make sure you head there before June 5th and get signed up for your 2-week free trial. If you're listening to this and you are an affiliate athlete or an affiliate owner and you're looking for that type of programming, you can head to teammisfit.com or the Sugar Wad Marketplace to get signed up for our affiliate programming as well. Again, what day is it? No one knows. But if you are at any of the semifinals, some of us will be at all of them. All of the ones that I'm thinking of in my head, East, West, and Europe. So sorry about that for anybody else. Come see us. And we'll see you again at some point. Bye.